Okay, so we're going to start with the economic problem. What is the economic problem? The economic problem is that the resources are scarce, yet our wants are unlimited. So, for example, I would like, maybe I want to consume a house, I want to buy a house, and I'd like the best possible house in Turin, but obviously there's only one best possible house in Turin. So, that's a problem. For the government, the government maybe it would like to spend more money to resolve the unemployment. It wants to spend money to big projects, resolve unemployment, but its resources are limited. So all these four groups, consumers, workers, government and producers, all have their resources scarce, yet they want so much more. And this is where economics comes in. Economics tries to find the best possible way to maximize the wants. Because the resources are scarce, we can't do everything. We can't buy everything or spend as much as we want. So we have to make a choice. And making a choice means we give up something. Now, if the goods are not scarce, they're called free goods and we don't need to make a choice. For example, air is not scarce. It's very precious. I need it. Got a very high value, yet we don't pay for it. So it's because it's not scarce. And I don't have to give up anything. If I can breathe this air or that air, it doesn't matter. But as soon as the air becomes scarce, if there's lots and lots of pollution, maybe we need to clean the air. And suddenly it would not be a free good. It would become an economic good. Because scarce goods are economic goods and they get a price on them. Now, like I said, if they're scarce goods, you have to give up something to have that good. And that's called the opportunity cost. For example, if I had an hour of time, that's the resource, an hour. I could study for an hour, or I could watch two television episodes. If I choose to watch two television episodes, my opportunity cost is an hour of studying because I've given that up. It's cost me an hour of study to watch those TV episodes. Alternatively, I could do an hour of study and that's cost me two episodes of television. Another example would be going out to dinner. You know, I could go out to dinner, or I could have a home cooked meal, or I could have a restaurant meal, or a takeaway. Now, it's always the second best option is the opportunity cost. So if I decide my best option is a home cooked meal, my opportunity cost will be the next best option, which maybe it's a takeout. If instead of the restaurant meal as second best, it's a takeout. So that home cooked meal has cost me a takeout. That's the opportunity cost. So we're going to remember that. Here in the picture we can see somebody has lots of money and they can have a holiday with that money or buy a computer. So if they choose to buy the computer, it's cost them a holiday. Now, it's not the money that's the opportunity cost, because the money goes anyway. You know, if he's going to spend it on one thing or the other, it's gone anyway. But what the real cost is the opportunity of the other thing. So we've got to think in terms of that. Remember, an economy doesn't necessarily have to have money. You know, you can have ration books, you can have a barter economy. Money is just a measure of value. Okay, it's a way of keeping account. So, you know, if we go to the fundamentals of an economy, we need to look at the opportunity cost as the cost of an exchange, what we could have done, what we sacrifice. We'll do this in class. Now, the resources are the inputs we use to make things, and the production is the output. What comes out is the production. The resources used for production are categorized into 4 categories. They're given 4 labels, and they're called factors of production, these 4 categories. The first category is land. This land isn't just the land, it's anything that comes from nature. It could be the land, it could be crops on a farm, it could be something under the land, like steel or oil, or even wind. You know, if you've got a wind farm, wind is a resource. That goes in this section of land. For land, for the resource of land, the reward is rent. We see land as getting a reward of rent. The next factor of production is labour. This can be physical labour, which is very limited, isn't it? You know, you can't do much with your physical labour. So physical labour hasn't got much value to it anymore. In fact, robots will be taking over physical labour eventually. You know, all this automation, slowly, physical labour is becoming less and less valuable, and more value are put into intellectual labour, producing intellectual products. Okay, if we look at Apple, Steve Jobs, he produced iPhone and Apple computers. He produced huge value because his was intellectual labour. He managed to produce something which was incredibly valuable and could be reproduced everywhere. Now we've got AI, so that can also be reproduced. Intellectual labour can be done by AI, but intellectual labour has the high value. Physical labour, I can change maybe my area. Maybe I can build something or plant some crops. But with intellectual labour, you can change the world. You can share ideas and build things that change everything. So for the labour, this factor of production, its reward is wages or salary. The same thing, wages, or we can say salary. The third factor of production is enterprise. These are the organisations that produce, and they are incredibly complex. They can take the other resources, all the other resources, with know-how, with an understanding on how to do it, know-how, Very important, that know-how, very valuable. And then turn it into riches. So maybe they take raw materials like steel, windows, rubber, all sorts of materials. And then they turn it into a car because they know how to do that, these enterprises. And suddenly all those materials are worth a lot of money. You think about a phone, the material's not worth anything, very small. Yet after the production process, that value is enormous. So we can think these organizations, this enterprise like Google, Amazon, Coca-Cola, Toyota, are incredibly important resources and factors of production because they know how to turn all the other resources into the final product. It takes maybe a long time, many years, to create something like Toyota or Amazon. You can't do it overnight. It takes a lot of resources. And when it's created, it has a lot of value. So that's enterprise, and that earns profit. That's the reward for enterprise. Profit. Capital. Here, we're not just talking of money. We can talk of money, but also anything that we make to produce. So, for example, if I make a robot and that robot works to produce cars, that is the capital. So companies need to buy a robot to produce, and that is the capital. And a factory is the same. A factory is part of the capital, or a van to move the raw materials. This is all capital. This is all what you need to produce. And anything that you need to produce is known as capital. And that's reward for that is interest. Because to buy a factory or to build a factory and to, buy all the other important machineries and tools to produce, companies must often borrow and pay interest. You pay interest, so they often must money. The price of money is interest, and that's the reward. So you've got those four categories, and each category has its reward in the economy. Now, money isn't a factor of production. It's not capital. In terms of factor of production, we've got capital, which is machines or anything that's man-made, which produces something. It's what we need to produce. Tools, factory, production line, vans. But it's not money. Why isn't it money? Remember, money is just an instrument of accounting. It tracks, it keeps count of what you've given to the economy, what you've taken, and what you're entitled to later. It's not actually worth anything intrinsically. Many companies just have debts. They're built on debt. They don't actually have any money. And economies don't need money. It can be a barter economy, an exchange. They can use ration cards. They can use other systems. So we don't consider money as a factor of production. A factor of production is everything we need to produce. It's not the accounting system, which is money. Okay, this is just to explain the instrument of money. So it's just a ledger value. So if you contribute, you make the bread, yes, the money will keep account of that. You'll ask money for that, and then you can get what you deserve from the economy. Start buying things. So it's just a record, really. It has no intrinsic value. That means it's paper. It's not valuable unless it's gold. Years ago we used gold, and then money had an intrinsic value. But really, it's just a symbolic value, just showing how much you've given and how much you deserve. Okay, so that's the way we got to see money in economics, as just an instrument to measure. Now, these factors of production can be mobile. Okay, so you've got two influences, important influences on its mobility. You've got occupational mobility. For example, can a person switch from being a teacher to a software designer? Are they able to? And that's how mobile that is. Can they change occupation? Or maybe can a machine for a car production be used for producing furniture? Is it possible that same machine can be used in a different way? Is it mobile? Or land, a piece of land, can it be used for a shopping mall? No, it can't. It could, but it would be very difficult. So it hasn't got much mobility. If it's really difficult, then it's not very mobile. Okay, so that's one influence, the occupational mobility. Is it easy to use in a different way? Or geographical mobility is a very important influence. For example, can someone work in another part of the country or even another part of the world? Are they geographically mobile? Or capital, can machinery or factories be relocated? Is land itself mobile? Or the oil that comes from the land? Yeah, normally it is mobile. Or entrepreneurs, are they able to move around? So this mobility is another, geographical mobility is very important for the factors of production, because are we able to change where they can be used, and also the occupational, can we change the reasons we use them? The mobility, more mobility means they're more useful. We can always change. So this factor mobility really does give them a value, more value, should I say. It means that also the factory maybe could change markets, change products, change where it's located. It doesn't have to be stuck and fixed with no other options. So factor mobility is really important to consider. Okay, so it's very important, fundamental in economics, consumption. Without consumption, there's no production. Nobody produces something unless it is consumed. But consumption has had a bit of a bad press in modern life. We do consume too much, too many things. We're consuming the earth. But what we mean by consumption is collaborating to solve problems. Okay, this lesson is a form of production and consumption. I'm producing the lesson, you are consuming the lesson. Without the consumption, there would be no production and no jobs, and people wouldn't even need to get out of bed. So it's really important we're active and that we're out of bed and we're trying to resolve things, trying to resolve climate change, find new materials, new ways of getting energy, new cures for illness, new ways of finding well-being and peace, always being active in life. And that is production. And for that, you need a consumption. So economics, you do need this idea of maintaining consumption, because without that, things start to collapse. If we stop consuming, we stop producing. And then we start to just wander around feeling lost and unemployed. So it does hold us together. Got to remember the article in the first article of the Constitution is Italia è fondato sul lavoro, because economics is the base of holding us together, our collaboration towards living well together. We do need a good economic model, the right economic model, and part of that is to consume in order to be active and collaborate together. So now, in addition, it's also important exchange, especially in a modern economy, exchange. So we need production in economics, consumption and exchange. It's fundamental. If I produce a carrot and I eat my carrot, there's no economics, there's no economy. But if I want to produce anything that's complex, suddenly economics is really important, because even a pencil, there's this famous example of a pencil where a pencil, to produce a pencil, one person doesn't know how to, no one in the world knows how to produce a pencil. Why? Because to know how to produce that pencil, you got to know how to cut down a tree, and then you got to know how to make a saw, an electric saw, and then you have to know how to get metal from the ground to make the saw, and maybe you have to know how to make a truck. So we all know in a modern economy we have such complexities, and we all know a little bit. And the only way to really just make a pencil, never mind something like an iPhone or, something very complex. So simple a pencil, nobody could produce a pencil on their own. We really need this exchange, and the more we exchange, the more we can make complex things like the internet and smartphones, and probably takes billions of people all exchanging, all knowing different things, different parts of the process to produce an iPhone connected to the internet. Is really the effort of the whole world. So this exchange is fundamental. And for the exchange, we need to use money, Because money is really, it's an accounting system. It's just to keep account of what somebody deserves and what they're giving up to have something. So it's just a method of accounting. The real value in money isn't the money, that's paper, that's printed. The real value in the money is the object or service, the goods or service that it is buying. The value is transferred into money because that's just the accounting, the total value it's worth and what you're giving up. Okay, so that through this exchange, we use money. We use money to keep an account of who has got what and what everyone deserves and what, whether people are allowed to go on holiday or not, etc. Lastly, the purpose of economics. So the purpose of economics, I've said before, is to solve the economic problem. But we've got to remember how fundamental economics is to our well-being and our progress. When things go wrong economically, our society falls apart. If we look at the American Depression, we can see how painful things got. Millions can end up dying of hunger and cold. If it can cause wars, the Second World War has been interpreted as the consequence of the Depression, the Great Depression. Argentina, there was great unrest. You can see the picture of Argentina with a lot of tension. People in Argentina were walking in, they had hungry children, and people were walking into stores just taking food for their children, and who could blame them? A written law is nothing. It means nothing if your children are ill and they need a cure, or they're hungry and they need food. Nothing will stop a population. Things do collapse. Wars do happen. Like I said before, Italia è fondato sul lavoro. In Article 1 of the Constitution, basically we come together through activity and through economic progress. It creates our well-being. The reason we can spend 25 years learning and not producing, learning at school, and 30 years on a pension, again not producing, and can have weekends and not have to produce all those times, and have holidays, etc. Is because of economics, our economic well-being. 70 years ago, at 12, children had to go to the farm and work 13 hours a day, no weekend, no holiday, no sick pay, until they died. So our lifestyles have changed through this economic solution to the problem of finding how to best use our resources to solve the scarcity of them.